The Honourable Cate Faehrmann.
Thank you, Mr President. Mr President, I move item number 6, standing in the order of precedence under my name. I am almost 70 and have been in a monogamous, loving relationship for half my life.
Order! 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 Stop the clock, please. Will honourable members following the division please take their seats? If they have conversations that they wish to have which are audible, please take them outside the chamber. The Honourable Cate Faehrmann.
Thank you, Mr President. I am almost 70 and have been in a monogamous, loving relationship for half my life. We have experienced many examples of discrimination over that time, both commercially and legally. A few years back, I was seriously ill in the local Catholic-run public-private hospital. My other half told them he had been my partner for 30 years, but they tried to deny him access because he was not related. It was not the first time. It is time we were treated equally before the law. We will be together for the rest of our lives. Our greatest wish is to marry before it's too late. Mr President, this email is from Peter, one of the more than 2,000 that members have received in recent weeks, urging them to support the motion before the House, a motion that is of great importance in moving this nation towards full equality for all people. The motion gives in principle support for marriage equality and calls on the Commonwealth Parliament to amend the Marriage Act 1961 to provide for it. That is, to remove discrimination and allow people to marry regardless of sex, sexual orientation and gender. I would like to say first up that I have every confidence, Mr President, that this debate will be conducted with civility, and I thank members in advance for their careful consideration and respectful contributions. I believe that we as a parliament and as legislators, as mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, sons and daughters, as friends and community members, need to acknowledge that marriage discrimination is having a real impact in the community and causing pain to many people by restricting what should be a most basic freedom, the freedom to marry the person you love. Marriage equality is not a federal issue, it is a moral issue. The question before us is a question of whether or not an individual should be discriminated against because of who they love. I firmly believe that this Parliament has an obligation to make representations to the Federal Parliament to give a voice to the majority of our citizens here in New South Wales who support marriage equality. The motion before the House today gives us an opportunity to do this. When the former Howard government amended the Marriage Act in 2004 in a political manoeuvre to wedge the Labor Party, a renewed campaign for full equality was ignited. At that time, a new definition was inserted into the Act to specifically exclude same-sex couples and to forbid Australia to recognise any same-sex marriage solemnised overseas. So we went backwards. But fast forward to 2012, and we can be proud that we have come a long way, and that this Parliament has been instrumental in removing most of the wall of discrimination that for so long has caused division, distress, violence and more. Yes, New South Wales can be very proud of our history of removing discriminatory laws, of being a leader in this area, from anti-discrimination legislation to adoption laws to relationship recognition. In September last year, the Tasmanian Parliament voted on a motion identical to this one, and it passed. This from a state whose equality law reform is much more recent than our own. I hope that today we join Tasmania in providing leadership to Australians on the question of marriage discrimination. This motion should be seen as a significant step towards the removal of one of the last bricks in that wall of discrimination that this Parliament has so rightly and so proudly dismantled over the years. How can this Parliament now not support calls for marriage equality when we accept that all families should have the legal protection provided by same-sex adoption legislation? How can we not support the rights of parents to marry if that is their wish? And for the children in those families to know their parents' love is just as rich and equal as the love of anyone else's parents in their street or school. If this motion passes, it will be considered part of a natural progression of laws that removed all unjust discrimination. History shows our steady progress towards a more tolerant, fair and fully equal society, From women securing the vote to the civil rights movement to the first Australians being given the vote to the decriminalisation of homosexuality. Madam Deputy President, there are currently 3 bills before the Federal Parliament to provide for marriage equality. These bills would bring Australia into line with countries including Canada, the Netherlands, Sweden, Belgium, Norway, Spain, South Africa, Argentina, Mexico and a number of states in the United States of America. The sky hasn't fallen in any of these places, and we know it won't here in Australia. Some members have suggested to me that marriage discrimination is not a priority. Well, I believe that if the community who is suffering the discrimination is shouting to us that it is their priority, then it is our priority. And here's why it is their priority. Marriage discrimination is at its root homophobia. It is institutional homophobia. It should be very simple for us to understand that institutional homophobia feeds personal, interpersonal and cultural homophobia in our society. And what must be absolutely central to members' deliberations on this debate is the impact of homophobia in our community. Some of you will already be aware of an organisation called 2010. This relatively small not-for-profit supports young people of diverse genders and sexualities with services ranging from counselling to crisis accommodation. Having now been in operation for 20 years, this essential service has helped thousands of questioning young people overcome some very difficult challenges such as family rejection, social isolation, violence, homelessness and some of the most severe discrimination imaginable. These are young people like those who were surveyed for the Writing Themselves In report, studies conducted by Dr Lynn Hillier and others from La Trobe University into the health and wellbeing of same-sex attracted young people. 20-year-old Christopher said, "I would say a gay person who says that they have never even thought about suicide is lying. Not being able to act on any of your desires, having to actively hide your true self, often having to pretend to hate the very thing that you are. All of these things equates to a deep feeling that you don't deserve to live, or failing that, a deep desire to end the suffering." I pose this question to all members. How can we expect our children in the playground and our colleagues in the workplace to challenge homophobia when the laws governing and recognising families and love sanction transparent discrimination? What chance do we have of improving the lives of vulnerable young people when our leaders and parliaments fail to take a stand against such discrimination? We cannot get around the fact that marriage laws which discriminate send a clear and devastating message. Not only are you different, but you are not worthy of this special institution which is held by so many to be so sacred. The message is clear. You don't qualify, you are not good enough. I know that many of you in this place are married. Think about your wedding day. Think about how this day was the ultimate expression of your love, the ultimate validation and recognition for you and your partner in front of your family and friends. Same-sex attracted people are of course just as capable of love and commitment as heterosexual people, but our marriage laws currently send a loud message that says you are less stable, less resilient and of less value to your partner, family and friends, and you are less value to society. This kind of negative message justifies homophobia in our communities, but even worse, it builds on the devaluation, fear and self-doubt that same-sex attracted people can experience every day. 20-year-old Tracy in the Writing Themselves In report said, "My mum called me a lesbian when I was 15 in a derogatory way. My sister told me I will burn and I am an abomination. The government needs to show an example to them by allowing full equality for all Australians." It is my firm belief that every single member in this place today has a responsibility to those suffering from homophobia, especially young people. I believe we have a duty to stand up as leaders and send a strong message. Not just a message to young gays and lesbians, but to their families and friends, to all in the community. A strong message that says, discrimination is not okay. It is time for full marriage equality for all, regardless of gender, regardless of sexual orientation. We have a responsibility to send a very strong message to the community that says, love between two consenting adults is a wonderful thing that we as a community support. Some members will no doubt argue that allowing same-sex couples to marry poses a threat to the institution of marriage, but I am yet to hear a rational argument as to how. And I am not alone. Recently, the Honourable Michael Kirby was speaking to the Senate Legal and Constitutional Affairs Committee and pointed out, I've never had a satisfactory explanation of how my loving relationship with my partner in any way damaged the institution of marriage, or would if marriage were available to us. Of course, it is precisely because the institution of marriage is held in such high regard that people want access to it. It is precisely because, for many people, marriage represents the deepest expression of a couple's love and commitment for each other that some same-sex couples want to marry. Another email from Christy. In April, I flew to New York with 20 friends and family to marry my partner of 4 years. I can personally tell you that marriage means something to me and to my partner and to my friends and family, all who live in a society that views marriage as the ultimate symbol of commitment to a loved one. I am not interested in making up a civil union ceremony. I consider it a compromise. And from Lorraine, my elder daughter is gay and she has a lovely partner. They absolutely love each other. My younger daughter recently married and enjoyed what is an important cultural event in our society. The joy and excitement experienced not only by them, but also by family, friends and the wider community of neighbours and work colleagues is testimony to this. Please let all loving couples have access to the institution of marriage. It is clear that the institution of marriage will be strengthened by accepting diversity within the community, removing discrimination and allowing access to people who want it. The institution of marriage has always been changing, and it has changed significantly in just the last 20 years. The Australian Bureau of Statistics states that of registered marriages in 2010, 31% were religious ceremonies, down from 58% in 1990. In other words, in 2010, 69% of marriage ceremonies were conducted by civil celebrants, up from 42% in 1990. From the 20 years from 1990 to 2010, the proportion of babies born outside registered marriages also rose from just over 1/5, 22%, to just over 1/3, 34% of all births. So I ask those who are considering voting against this motion today, what harm will occur by allowing 2 women or 2 men who are deeply in love with each other and committed to each other to marry? What harm will occur to families, to our society, to our religious institutions? It is simply not necessary to sanction discrimination in order to respect tradition and to even ensure religious freedom. Personal religious beliefs should not impose on the freedoms of others. Or, to put it more lightly, those of you who do not want same-sex marriage, that is fine, you do not have to enter into one. But please allow others the joy, the love, the validation, the sanction that you are able to enjoy in your marriage or in other marriages that our society has blessed. The foreshadowed amendments, the amendments from the Honourable Trevor Khan will address this issue, but they go further to call on the Commonwealth to ensure that churches are not forced to solemnise same-sex marriages if they do not wish to. I will be supporting these amendments reluctantly to give the motion its best chance of success. Unfortunately, there is still a long way to come with regards to exemptions allowing religious organisations to discriminate, and I do feel in this place we'll have that debate another day. Thank you to the people in the gallery who have come to hear this today, to Alex Greenwich for his inspirational leadership on the Australian Marriage Equality Campaign. It's worth noting that Alex has recently returned from Argentina, where he married his long-term partner, Victor Hueld. Alex and Victor may have enjoyed the holiday, I am sure, and the wedding, but what a tragedy that they aren't able to solemnise their love in this way in their home country. I also want to thank Rodney Croom, the legendary campaigner from Tasmania, who, along with some of my Greens colleagues, helped transform the most homophobic state in Australia into the most accepting within one generation. I would also like to thank Peter Stahl in my office for his hard work over many weeks and his determination in seeing this motion succeed. Special thanks also to the Gay and Lesbian Rights Lobby, Community Action Against Homophobia, who are also in the public gallery, and all the other, PFLAG, the Gender Centre and all the other groups, activists and ordinary community members who have come out in support of marriage equality. Thank you to the campaigners who have sacrificed so much over decades in the struggle for equal rights, as well as to the newly convinced who have come around in recent times. And thank you to so many people who have had the courage to share very personal and very moving stories with me and other members over the last few weeks. Jeff Kennett very recently said on Melbourne radio, If people are living a happier life in a gay relationship which ends up in marriage, then why would I in any way want to prevent it? I don't oppose gay marriage. He later went on to write in the Herald Sun, "The reality is that all the anti-discrimination laws are baseless if society deliberately discriminates against those law-abiding citizens who seek marriage but are discriminated against by a law on the grounds of sexuality." That's Jeff Kennett. Those who have come on a journey through these issues and grappled with their personal beliefs and values should also be congratulated. I look forward to some of you being on the right side of history today. Today's conscience debate is enormously significant because in Canberra, the opposition leader Tony Abbott refuses to allow coalition MPs a free vote. I congratulate Barry O'Farrell, therefore, and John Robertson and Andrew Stoner for their leadership in allowing MPs to examine marriage equality on its merits in this instance. Let me finish with the words from two campaigners. The first from Shelley Argent AM, the national spokesperson for PFLAG, which is the Parents, Families and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. Our lesbian daughters and gay sons want no more or less than their heterosexual siblings, which is just be equal. And we as their parents also want equality for them. Marriage equality will remove the feelings from our sons and daughters that they are seen as second-rate citizens with second-rate relationships and provide them with the same rights and responsibilities, privileges and choices as their siblings, colleagues and society. The second from Catherine in another of the emails. The reason this issue is so important to me: my great cousin Klaus was with his male partner Rudy for 40 years. Rudy was ill the last 5 years of his life. Klaus cared for him 24/7. They made a home and had a wonderful, loving relationship. Klaus passed away 2 weeks ago. They always wanted to be married. Please, they should have had that right. Don't let anyone else suffer because they're in love. And in thinking about 70-year-old Peter's wish at the beginning of my speech, to marry before it is too late, I urge all of the members to, if you haven't already, read some of the personal stories and personal messages that have come through on the emails. I commend the motion to the House.